Are you a medical mom who feels overwhelmed by the endless appointments, confusing diagnoses, or doctors that just don't seem to listen? In today's episode, I'm joined by Crystal as she shares practical advocacy strategies and the top holistic tools that every medical mom needs to know about. So if you've been searching for hope in the middle of medical chaos, this episode is for you. Still trusting a system that profits from your sickness? Faith Over Pharma is here to flip the script and help you heal the way God designed. Are you tired of chasing symptoms, trying prescriptions that only mask the problem, or feeling like your body is failing you no matter what you do? Maybe you're living with chronic pain, inflammation, fatigue, or health issues that just won't resolve, and you're desperate for real answers. That's why I love phototherapy. These tiny patches use light to activate your body's own healing. It supports stem cells, reduces inflammation, boosts your energy, and helps you sleep better. No drugs, no side effects, just your body doing what God designed it to do. If you're ready for a natural option that actually works with your body, I'd love to invite you to a free 30-minute consultation. We'll talk through your health concerns and see if phototherapy might be the tool you've been praying for. You can grab your spot at susangladstein.com/phototherapy. Our guest today is Crystal. She is a Jesus-loving, sweet tea drinking Renaissance woman who is on a mission to empower medical mom warriors. She's an international best-selling author, certified Heart Healing Practitioner, and a business coach who walks alongside moms navigating some of the hardest battles. Everything from life-threatening allergies and autoimmune disease to cancer, TBIs, abuse, and more. And through her own journey, she has become a tenacious advocate, helping moms move from feeling overwhelmed in medical chaos to finding hope and thriving again. She's also the founder of Medical Mom Warriors and brings such a powerful voice to the conversation around faith-led wellness and holistic healing. And I am so honored to have you here with me today. And before we kind of dive into your holistic toolkit, I'd love for listeners to hear a little bit of your own journey and what led you into this world of advocating for moms in medical chaos.
I am so glad you asked that. And thank you so much for having me, because I am looking forward to this conversation. Anytime we can cross between faith and the holistic, I'm all for it. So really, my journey started before I had the kiddo, who has 25 diagnoses. 4 months into a very newly wed status, I got in a car accident. And from there, I had a traumatic brain injury, saw 48 doctors who didn't have a clue what to do with me 30 years ago. Headaches were not what they used to be. I mean, if I had had that car accident today, let's just say I'd be a wealthy woman. But back then, they just didn't know what to do with you. So they'd pat me on the leg and go, "Oh, just go home and sleep it off. This is the most excruciating pain you've ever had in your entire life. And you just want me to go sleep it off. Dude, I can't even sleep because of the pain. But okay, I hear you." So that kind of led me on a default of learning how to advocate for myself, learning what works, what doesn't work. And honestly, in hindsight, it was totally what I was going to need in the future. We did survive that marriage for a little bit anyways. Then 10 years worth of infertility, mainly from the car accident as well as some other things. But God healed my tubes by total faith healing. I had some prayer. It was just amazing. And I was pregnant 6 months later. It was insane. And that little girl, God bless her, my little miracle child, decided in utero to start her faith journey of healing, pharmacy, you name it. And she decided to do the splits. This is called footling breech. And one foot's up, one foot's down. For the last 10 weeks, they thought she had just flipped around early. She had not. And so I had an emergency C-section. In the state I was in, Colorado, they are known to have jaundice babies there due to the altitude. So I wasn't too concerned about the jaundice. But within 9 months, we gave her a little piece of egg at Cracker Barrel. And let's just say we got to see how fast the car made it to the hospital after that. The anaphylaxis had entered the picture. From there, it has been a journey. She has 25 diagnoses, and some just recently. She just turned 20 last month, and every day is an adventure. So what I've learned is God has a lot of challenges for us, but an opportunity to help others, inspire others, and most of all, bring help to other medical moms when they're walking the hardest journeys of their life. And for some, that is harder than honestly even mine has been, because their babies don't get to go home with them sometimes. And that breaks my heart. I've got two that I'm kind of keeping watch on and praying for right now that, their transition is going to be pretty soon. And so when you look at medical moms, they are a rare breed. That's for sure.
Man, that's kind of a lot, but what I really appreciate, just even from your demeanor, I just get this sense of love and compassion, but just joy and positivity that yes, you were thrown a lot of things that may not have been what you wanted in life, but you've come through that with a lot of joy. How would you say that faith was, how did it become a central part of your healing journey and the way that you serve others today?
Wow. You know, I am one of those people who has always known the Lord. There's not a whole lot of us out there, but not everybody has that. I'm 13, went to summer camp, and had a conversion experience. I've just always known him, which flies in the face of my family, really. God bless them. They were we pray at meals and then at the bedside, and we don't talk about God in between, but we take you to church kind of thing, which was all fine. Nothing bad. But it wasn't this free flowing, what's God doing in your life moments. And I live for those moments. I love those moments. I would rather sit down with you any given day, give me 5 minutes and tell me where you are with the Lord. How can I support you? How can I pray for you? And when this came along, I just realized the only person that was going to get me through even my traumatic brain injury, the abuse that had then started in my marriage, on top of all of this, was God. That still took 20 plus years, interestingly enough, to trust God enough to leave that abusive marriage, because a lot of people in the church circles will tell you you just aren't praying enough and you're the savior and go lose weight and greet him at the slippers with the, yada, yada, all brainwashing, to be completely honest. And it took me a while to break out of that because I actually had the Lord tell me this was the man I was going to marry, as clear as I'm talking to you guys today. So how could I go against that? I'm supposed to divorce the person you told me I was going to marry. And I didn't have the support or the mentorship, which is why I feel so strongly about mentorship in life now, to direct me and guide me to say, hey, that directive also required both of you to follow the Lord, and one of you is not. And so God released me from that. I finally realized I needed to trust God for my future, for my child's future, no matter what that looked like physically for her. And we left that marriage. And so it's been my kiddo and I for the last couple of years. And, it's an opportunity to inspire other people, not just for inspiration, but to open up a story for them that maybe they're not willing to say or share with other people. I couldn't tell people what was going on in my household. We were literally part of a marriage relationship group leading retreats. Like, how could I explain some of that to them? No, it doesn't mean I've ever left them, but it definitely, we have a lot of, okay, Lord, I get that this is supposed to be happening right now, but I need to understand the lesson better. I need to understand the why better so I can share it with other people, first of all. But second of all, because I got to get my mind wrapped around where we're going because I don't have all the answers. Nobody does, right? So we have our challenging moments, but most of all, it's hope. When we don't have hope, when we don't think that there's going to be a future, when we are looking for answers that are very obscure and there doesn't seem to be any, what are you left with? And hope is what I'm left with. And that's really the hope in Jesus, to know I have no idea what the future holds, but I do know who holds my future and who holds my daughter's future, whether she's talking to him right now or not, which right now she's on the outs with him, but that's okay.
Well, and I've been in similar stages of my life as well. And I think that I often say that I've heard from the Lord most clearly and the loudest in the times of difficulty and challenges. But we really have this opportunity to either lean into it or run away from it. And oftentimes it's more comfortable to just run away from it, right?
It definitely makes sense to our flesh to get out of the pain, for sure.
And I know that you're super passionate about giving medical moms tools beyond what's typically offered in the doctor's office. But can you share your top three holistic tools that you've seen make the biggest difference?
Absolutely. The holistic tools can be a wealth of different things. So one of them is actually understanding our body's frequency. And frequency is nothing more than the energy. And I know the minute I said that, a lot of your audience went, oh, we're going to talk about energy. But hold on, bear with me for 1 second. I used to be the same way. And in 2020, when the world was ending with COVID, my daughter was dancing in the living room. And as she was dancing, she fell on the floor and screamed out. She couldn't feel anything from her waist down. We had no idea what was happening. We had all of the major testing done, MRIs, ultrasounds, CTs, you name it. They could not find a root cause to what was happening. And at this point, it was June, and so school was out. And I had posted a couple of things on Facebook, and one of her teachers actually happened to catch my post, which is totally a God thing because that woman is never on Facebook. So it's really a God thing that she saw it. She goes, hey, I have this tool. I really think it could help her. Could I come over and show it to you? And at this point, you're desperate. Your kid can't feel anything from the waist down. They have no rational reason as to what's going on. You are desperate. Bring it. I don't care what it is, just bring it. So interestingly enough, I actually have it right here. It's a hand size portable frequency machine. It's actually been over in Europe for 30 plus years. We're always so delayed in the United States, right? And it was called the Time Waver over there, but it's called the Healy here. And it actually had just released, talk about timing, in the United States in May. This was now June. How crazy is that? Totally got. And so she brought it over. And this particular tool resets your cellular frequency. So the minute we come out of the womb, our frequency, our actual ions, electrons, neutrons, all of that, we actually have a level, and it's actually starting at 0 when we come out. 0 is good. As we age, it goes into the negative. That's bad. Because at the point that it's so negative, and sorry, I reversed this. So when we come out, when it gets to 0, our cells are dead. Sorry, I totally reversed that. And so ultimately, we want to be resetting the frequency within our cells. And so in order to do that, this little tiny machine can do that for us. And there's tons of programs on there. One of which I just had 2 kidney stones. And so I called up my friend. She can send programs to my little unit. And so she sent me the kidney stone one. And so interestingly enough, 3 weeks later, I had no kidney stones. I never passed them. They were not the breaking up kind. So we have frequency doing its job. We have God doing his job. It's pretty cool because they are totally gone, and they were very large kidney stones, 7 millimeters. And I'd never had a kidney stone in my life. So did this machine bring my daughter's legs back? 9 months later, she had feeling back in her legs. Like it came over time. We were running this machine, this holistic tool multiple times a day, and it doesn't do anything. You don't have to sit there and do it. You can be doing other things. So we go to museums when we could. Remember, the world was shut down. We like to take a lot of car trips back then just to get her out of the house because it was a mental challenge. When you lose the use of your legs, and at that point she was 14. It was quite a challenge. So we would take that little machine and we borrowed it from her and then ordered our own because we could see the value of it. So that's one of our big tools. I use that thing all the time. Love that machine. In fact, we have two. And I have referred many people to it. So that's definitely one thing. Another one, which I happened to catch when you and I first got on, I saw a little white patch of yours. And those particular white patches are really designed to help us reorganize our stem cells and activate the proper things in our body to get our bodies healing. So those patches are another huge one for us that we use. And then there's actually another patch that we use, and it used to be just socks and just insoles, and they've moved to a patch concept. And it used to be called Vox Life. And this was the biggest fluke of all, stumbling onto this. And this was well before 2020. I happened to be at a local fair, and I had a little table for my heart healing counseling in there. And I was just walking around. It was kind of dead in the moment. And so I stumbled upon this lady, and she began to tell me that this technology, which is nothing more than a pattern, changes your brain. I'm like, there's got to be drugs involved, right? It's like a nicotine patch or something. She's like, no, it's literally proprioceptor, as if reflexology on your feet. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to understand this better. She pulls up her own brain scans. This is where I was sold. So she shows me her brain scan before she put the technology on, and you could see all these areas of her brain totally lit up on fire. And then all she does is stand. She didn't even put the socks on. She just stood on the insoles because the technology pattern was on the bottom of the insole. Her brain registered it within 7 seconds, and her whole, where all the areas were that were lit up, stopped lighting up. She could focus. She could see, like, mentally, it was like night and day. I said, how do I get some of those? She goes, oh, I got a pair right here. I'm like, I need those right now for my kid, because we had just found out she was ADHD and she's really struggling. She's also on the spectrum. And so this emotional connectivity is really hard for her. I came home with my little socks in hand. I'm like, kiddo, come here. I'm like, could you put these socks on? And so she puts them on, and she's just like, wow, my brain feels good. I'm like, what? And so I didn't say too much more. I just kind of wanted to evaluate, observe. Like, it really couldn't be this easy, right? Could not be this easy. Next thing I know, she's sitting on the couch beside me and got her head right on my shoulder. I'm like, what just happened? What just time, I became a firm believer in Vox Life. I was ordering insoles and socks, and oh my gosh, it was quite crazy. So now they've gone to a patch, and they have tons of different types of patches available for them as well. And we can get you all those information pieces in your show notes for sure. But it definitely is night and day. Those are my big top 3 for sure. The frequency unit, our little white patches for stem cell activation, and then the Vox Life. And they have a different name now under the patches. But those are my big 3 that I'm always using all the time.
And I love that. I think that so many times, and I don't know if it's just because we're all conditioned to, meds and doing any kind of pharmaceuticals, that anytime I approach someone with something like the LifeWave patches, they're met with a lot of skepticism, and B, it's like, how is that even going to work? And I'm going to need to research that. But like, how many times have you researched pharmaceuticals that you were given that come with a laundry list of side effects, and you just are like, oh, that's fine if I have diarrhea for the next three days, my headache's gone, for example. But I think because it is so simple and so natural, and that's partly my hope is to like help educate people that there are other options. And I know that that's a big thing that you're big on helping medical moms with those tools. Um, but what's something simple that someone who's listening today could start using right away that's going to really support their family's health?
Wow, that is a fantastic question. I have like 5 things come to mind immediately, right? Uh, let's share about tapping. So if you don't know what tapping is, this is called emotional freedom technique. And you are tapping different meridians. I know, don't stress it, guys. Trust me, don't stress it. I know, I hear you. I've been there. Here's the science. We have meridians. There is no denying this, no more than we can deny the energy and frequency within our bodies. Even the Bible says the rocks will cry out, right? If we don't praise them, the rocks are going to cry out. That's frequency, by the way, guys. So if you look in the Bible, it's all there. And when we have these meridians, they actually start at our head, it's single one, and then it branches out to about the collarbones, goes down into both arms, and then you have a meridian that goes down through the boob area and goes straight down into your legs. So each of those meridians have points on them that release things, could release knots. Like if you've ever been to a masseuse, holy moly, they find every knot in my body and I didn't even tell them where they were, right? I'm like, how do you know this, right? And then it also can release emotional things. And this is a really big deal because one of the things that I do as heart healing is we deal with some of those emotional releases that we hold. So for example, one of the people that I share a story about is she absolutely was so angry with her dad over things that he did. She had every right to be angry. He should have been under the jail, not just in the jail kind of thing. Horrible, horrible things. And she made a vow within her, I'm never going to forgive him for what he did. Now, mind you, with what happened, I could totally understand why anybody would make that vow, right? But the problem with making those vows or using strategies or even believing lies and thinking they're to our benefit is they are going to cause you bondage and harm. And they are going to sit within your body, into your organs. And there's a great book out there called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And if you can get a hold of that book, it's totally worth it. It's an older book. And you really begin to understand how our organs hold that pain, that anger, that disappointment, that hatred, that performance. We all think, oh, performance is good. No, it's really not because it leads to perfectionism. And that's a whole nother ball of wax. And, having an extremely high standards is going to cause you massive issues you don't even realize. So this particular young lady, she just could not bring herself to release that. She could not bring herself to a place of forgiveness. And I want to encourage your audience, in the moment that you've been gaslit medically, you've got doctors who are not listening to you. They're causing you more pain than help, right? You do build up an anger level to them, a resentment, a disappointment, and at times a hatred because they're not listening to you. They're dismissing you, right? And you are valid in what you're feeling. I want to make that clear. It is not all in your head, and there is nobody that's going to know you better and your body better than you. So if your doctor's not listening, guess what? The great news is you get to fire that doctor and find a new one. And a lot of people don't realize that. So please feel free to fire your doctors, find new ones. So that particular young lady really wanted to hold on to the offense. That's really what it came down to. She felt entitled to do it, and it was wrong, and he was wrong. But because of that, she held on to that, and she was riddled with lung cancer and had never smoked a day in her life. Now, this is not true for everybody who has lung cancer that hasn't smoked a day in their life. I have no idea what their traumas are or what they've walked through in their life. But this particular young lady, that's where it held for her, was in the lungs. And it ate her alive and literally it killed her. So, that particular person killed that woman, really. And she didn't help herself by holding on to that offense. So why do we want to forgive? I think this is a great conversation real quick. One of the stories that my daughter's health and wellness teacher shared, I absolutely love. She said, if you can imagine you have super long hair, like nice Rapunzel hair, right? You've been babying it, you love it, you put the rosemary in it, it's lovely, right? And you go to bed at night, and a person comes in the middle of the night. And this person could be your spouse. It could be a mom, a dad, a sister, a sibling, a friend, whoever it is. They come in the middle of the night and they cut off your hair in the middle of the night. That's going to cause a lot of trauma. Betrayal, violation, anger, hatred, more than just disappointment, right? Shame. Amazingly enough, they weren't the cause of it, but there's a shame now, a condemnation that they feel, worthiness issues. Why did this person do these things? And especially in a marriage situation where a spouse betrays one, right? Or puts their hand on that person, you begin to realize they've cut your hair off in the middle of the night and they violated you. And you have to figure out how to move forward. And so when you're moving forward like that, in that moment, it's not about the other person. It's about your heart. And how do you move forward in the best way possible? In holding on to that pain, you are going to feel it if you do. It's going to come out. Feelings buried alive never die. So if you are married to that person and you want to rebuild a bridge with them, it is very important that they realize they have burned the bridge. And now you have to build the bridge. And you, as the person having been violated, don't need to build anything. They need to build it because they have to show fruit that they are now trustworthy again. And that's a big deal for a lot of people who have had that situation. And so as we're talking about different pieces about emotional health, because that is just as important as physical health, right? And oftentimes is what stems into the physical being of that health. You do need to consider physical ramifications of trauma and spiritual ramifications of trauma. And spiritually, that could also be generationally. And we're not just talking about nobody in my family has ever liked blue cheese. There's that kind of generational. But then there's 8 generations of sexual perversion that's happened in the family. Guess what? That's generational. And I want to encourage your audience, the sooner that you can deal with that, you can be the bondage breaker for your generations so your kiddos do not have to deal with that. Man, you are changing not just your current present, but you are changing the future legacies. And it is phenomenal when you see that. I just got to do that with a couple yesterday, and we went into the courts of heaven and we got to change so many things for their generations. And you can visibly see the weight come off their shoulders of things that they have been wrestling with for ages and didn't even realize why. So I would tell you, back to your original question, the top 3 things, I would say the top thing is really getting your spiritual health in order so your physical health can follow suit. I hope that makes sense.
And I'm glad that you bring that up because I think that there's a lot about our health that we don't often consider being tied to our spiritual or emotional health. I mean, I can think of many times in my life when I've been just like full throttle, stressed to the absolute max, running 24/7. And of course, that's when I get sick. right? Or I get injured and it's the worst possible time. So my stress always would manifest itself physically, whether it was neck pain, back pain, headaches, sleeplessness, all of that stuff. And so I think it's very important. And what I hope to bring more light to is that connection between the emotional, the spiritual to our physical health. And you mentioned that one of the hardest things, I mean, even for medical moms that you deal with, is learning how to advocate for themselves or their children in
Mhm.
a system that kind of just dismisses our voices oftentimes. So,
Yeah.
what are your top 3 tips for advocating without feeling completely shut down?
Well, some of those I've just had to implement. We moved from one state across the country to another state, and we're dealing with a whole new medical realm. We also moved from pediatric to adulthood, which why we do not have a transition system for that, I have no idea. That is one of my pet peeves, I got to tell you, having now walked through that. I'm like, why wouldn't we have this in place already? Kind of goes back to why aren't we studying women in menopause when 50% of the population is going to automatically 100% get it? Okay, my rant's over. Top 3 for advocacy. 1, if you have an inpatient stay, you absolutely can refuse to be discharged. Now, you probably know about AMA. I can leave against medical advice. Absolutely, you can do that and leave against medical advice. But you can also stay against medical advice, because if you do not feel that your child is stable or you as a patient are stable to be able to go. So what would you need to do in that situation? Absolutely know kind of the chain of command, and every system structure does vary just slightly, but here are some key things to look for. Patient advocate. Please understand that is the biggest misnomer. It's like military intelligence. It is not for you as the patient. I'm just letting you know that. They are there to protect the hospital, and I have seen that in action more than once. But you do need to start a paper trail with them. The next person that you could talk to is the charge nurse or the departmental director nurse of the floor or the ward that you're associated with. There's also a hospitalist who is not just the doctor on duty that's seeing everybody that's inpatient, but that particular hospitalist actually needs to cover whatever the drama mechanism is that's happening for you or your child in that moment. And then you can begin to run it up to directors as all the way up. You just need to find out. So this is one of the things that I've started doing. As soon as I see my kid's going to be inpatient, I am immediately figuring out the org chart. And you need to do that because you need to know who the next level is. The name will change based on the day as well, but you do need to know that. So that's one of my big ones that I share with people now, because the last time she was inpatient, she wasn't ready to go home. And I even recently did not know that I could fight a discharge. Now I do. And so I share that information. So what's another one? Another one for advocacy would be read, 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 read. And if I didn't say it loud enough, read the notes that are put into that chart. 9 times out of 10, they are wrong. Or they are what I would say mislabeled. Now, what do I mean by that? Case in point, my kiddo was just seen by a cardiologist. And it's a pretty well-known facility. They have a med school attached to it as a college. It's a pretty big deal. We're very fortunate to have gotten in there. Loved the doctor, really enjoyed him. He took time with my kiddo. He's listening. He's putting 2 and 2 together. He's making referrals that we already knew we needed to ask about. In his notes, when we got them, it said she was obese. And we said, where did that come from? And we called the nurse line and we said, this is not accurate. This is not even close. We're at a borderline, maybe overweight, maybe on a good day, because she's got swelling, overweight, right? And the nurse said, I'm looking at the stats. I don't even understand why he put that in the note. I'm like, thank you. It's beside the point. We're all working off the dumbest BMI chart from the 1950s ever that was based on a 5'6" man, by the way. Another rant, but we'll just leave that one there. So I told that nurse, I said, look, you guys have put my kid into a tailspin. She's already had emotional eating issues in her life. You do not understand what that one word just did to my kid. And it was a very tough 2 weeks for my kid, in encouraging her to speak for herself. And she had worked herself up that she couldn't even do it. So I had her sitting beside me while I had this conversation, and this little phone, I'm going to talk to you about that advocacy piece in a second, but that's what I used. I put the voice recorder on. I record those meetings. Now they will go, oh, you're not allowed to record. Guess what, buddy? At the point that you guys keep writing stuff like this in my chart, oh, we will be recording, because I have to make sure my kid's protected, that I'm protected as a patient. So I am entitled to record. I don't make it a big deal though. So I'll just tell you that advocacy tip. I actually have a voice recorder on my phone. I always make sure I have plenty of space on my phone. I buy larger volumes of phones, like 256 gigs, because I know I'm going to record stuff all the time. I also data dump my phone for those voice recordings, probably every couple of months, just to keep that space moving. We have a lot of doctor's appointments. And so when you do that, everybody's on their phone nowadays. So it's really nonchalant that you just pull your phone up, you make sure your voice recorder's on, you hit pause, make sure your volume is up, and your do not disturb is on. So that way, if you get a phone call, it doesn't automatically cut off the recording. And plus you want to be present in the appointment. So then as soon as the doctor, not the nurse, but the doctor comes in, I just hit record. I turn my phone over so it's not being shown. The screen's not being shown. And I just flip it so the microphone's towards our conversation. And I record the conversation. More often than not, I forget to turn off the conversation 3 hours later, but that's okay. I got the conversation. But I've found that's really super helpful now that we have lovely AI. You've got Otter.ai and you've got ChatGPT will actually record for free. A lot of people don't know that. You can turn your ChatGPT on verbal. You don't have to be paying for that monthly fee. I do pay the ChatGPT $20 fee. I find it's more useful for me, but it can record all of that conversation. And guess what? It's transcribing it for you. That's amazing. Definitely reread those notes, though. They're not always accurate. But why is it so important? Let's go back to that for just a second. Why is it so important to read your notes? Let me tell you why, personally. I went to go update my life insurance, and they had to pull. I had cancer on my head. I had melanoma on my head. I've had 70 spots removed off my body. So there's a question whether I'm going to get better life insurance, right? And they came back to me, and it took quite a while, like 4 months. And I'm like calling, are like, am I going to get this? What is happening? They're like, yeah, we can't insure you. I'm like, oh, okay. Why? That just the melanoma on the head? No, the breast cancer that you had and the miscarriages you had. I said, I'm sorry, whose record are you reading? Well, yours. I said, I have never had breast cancer in my entire life. And I've been pregnant one time, and she's sitting right here beside me while I'm on the phone with you. Never had a miscarriage. They're like, well, ma'am, that's in your records, and we can't argue with the records. Oh, yes, we can. When I've lived it and not lived it, yes, we can. And they said, well, I'm sorry, but we can't insure you at this time. Oh, isn't that interesting? So I called the facility who is record keeping. In that moment, it was the military, which is a whole nother ball of wax of fun. And I said, we are going to need to remove some things out of my record. Oh, we can't do that. I'm sorry, what? And so it is actually almost impossible to have things removed from your record. Which is why I say, read the record so you can immediately get the record fixed. This was back in the days of paper records. I didn't know that. The other interesting thing to all of that, when I went to court for my divorce and he wanted to bring up abuse, all of my trips to the ER were suddenly missing out of my record. Isn't that interesting? So it's not just about the things that you don't want in the record that are inaccurate, but also to make sure the things are in the record that are accurate. So those are my big three, I think.
That's man, that's really good information because I obviously being pregnant at 44, I found them diagnosing me and writing things in my record of things because of my age that it didn't actually have. And
Mhm.
somebody was like, "Oh yeah, it's they can bill the insurance for that extra diagnosis." And I was furious because I was like, "There's nothing wrong with me. I don't have that. Why is it in there?" So, yes, that is a very, very important point to make sure that what's in there is accurate. My gosh, this has been so powerful. And for the mom who's listening and just feels like overwhelmed with all of the medical chaos that's going on in the world right now, what word or words of encouragement would you want to leave with her?
I think ultimately realize your journey is not a gift. I know people will come out with these platitudes of God gives the hardest challenges to his best soldiers. I cry BS. No, that is not the way this works. What it is you have an opportunity to love your kiddo in the best way possible. And I applaud you. And I just want to take a moment right now and say thank you. Thank you for loving your kid in the best way that you can. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And it could look like a big fat mess, and that's okay. And your house is never clean. The world's not going to end, folks. What's important is you're keeping your kid alive. And that's really the focus right now. And it is hard, but you're not alone. It feels isolating, but I really, really want to encourage you. You are never alone. Not only am I going to say it's God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus with you. So you're not alone. You've got solutions. You've got a journey. You've got a guide. You've got a light. But it's people like me. It's people like Susan that we have walked some of these journeys, and we are here for you because we don't want you to have to go through this alone. And that's one of the reasons that I'm actually working on a project right now to work on some databases of resources for you guys, which will include financial resources, doctor referrals in multiple states, ways that you can stay connected to other people who are walking similar journeys, because your stories can shed absolute light for other people. And I'll just close with one of these stories. So when my then husband was deployed, one of our good friends, her husband was deployed, and our girls were about a year apart. So every Friday night we had fun time at Lori and Caitlin's. And so we'd go over there, and poor girl, every time we ate. Now, at this point, we know my child has celiac, which means it's not just about a gluten allergy. She literally cannot have gluten, wheat, rye, oats, and barley because it will cause her entire intestines, small intestines, to basically heal off and die. So we know that, right? So we're always finding different things to try. And so she always is eating gluten-free. On these meal nights with them, Lori and her daughter, Caitlin, and I were eating whatever. And so never fails. Within 20 minutes of eating, poor girl is in the bathroom. And I finally looked at her after about 3 or 4 of these nights, and I said, have you ever been tested for celiac? She's like, no, but tell me again what that is. And so we had this conversation. She goes, oh, huh, that really could explain some things. She went and got tested the next week. It was so high off the chart, they didn't even need to do the biopsies. It was crazy. And today it's just a blood test. Back then it wasn't. So, I mean, she had such huge results and changes in her life just by sharing the story. So those mamas who are walking out here thinking, oh, life is so hard, I want to encourage you to begin to share stories. One, it's going to bring you community, but 2, you have no idea the story and the life that you're walking could absolutely radically change somebody else's life as well.
But it's so true. And I can look back on my life in the hard times. And when I've shared it with someone else and it gave them a sense of hope or different meaning, that to me, I wouldn't trade, even though it was terrible for me personally, I wouldn't trade that experience to be able to share that hope for anything. And I've said that numerous times in my life. So I appreciate you saying that. Before we jump off, where can listeners go to connect with you? And I know that you have some free resources, and I'll make sure that that's all in the show notes, but I would love for you to share with us on how we can connect with you.
The shortest and most easiest way is medicalmomwarriors.com. Come join me, grab a cup of tea, and chat with me. Love to connect with you.
I love that. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to add before we close out?
Thank you to you because I love this podcast. I love getting the faith out there and really understanding that we're not alone. But most of all, for your audience, I love you guys. I truly want you to understand. I may never have met you, but I pray for my medical mom warriors all the time. And especially if you yourself are a patient and have some things happening for you and you're trying to take care of your kiddos, my hat's off to you. I see you. I hear you. You're not alone. And most of all, you have hope. And things will be different for you. I guarantee it.
Such a great reminder. And thank you so much for taking the time to pour into us and just for being a light of positivity and love for people who are going through really tough times. And sometimes it's hard to, like, we so desperately want that light and it can be hard to find. So thank you for shining so brightly so we can find you. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for hanging out with me on this episode of Faith Over Pharma. If something stirred in you today, share this with a friend who's ready to stop outsourcing their health and start healing the way God designed. And if you're ready to stop chasing symptoms and start healing at the root, head over to faithoverpharma.org to grab tools, join the movement, or book a free call. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative, protecting your peace, and walking in the truth that your body was made to heal.